If you're looking for more individualized help with your climbing training, we have a special discount going on right now with Coach Matt Pincus's services. Normally, he works with people on a month-to-month basis at around $295 per month. He's discounted that to $260 per month for a 3-month program with him. So with that, you get an initial 90-minute call, then 2 additional hour-long calls to be used throughout the 12 weeks with him. You'll have constant contact with him through the True Coach app, where you'll also find your training programs. He will help not only get you stronger and more skillful, but he's also there as your coach to help guide you through projecting, injuries, whatever comes up for you. So you can find that at trainingbeta.com/12 weeks. And again, he only has a couple spaces left for this. So if they're all full and it's closed up by the time you get there, you can also just find his services always at trainingbeta.com/Matt. But again, that URL for this special discount for $260 per month is trainingbeta.com/12 weeks, all one word. This is the Training Beta Podcast, and I'm your host, Neely Quinn. Thanks for joining me for another episode all about training for climbing and all things climbing. So a while ago, I put out an email and Instagrams and asked for people's success stories with climbing training. And I got some really cool responses because I wanted to feature them on the podcast. So today is one of those. I have another one that I just recorded yesterday that's going to be really good and also very similar to this one too. So today though, I have Jeff Rotkoff, and he is a 46-year-old man from Austin, Texas. He has a full-time job. He has kids, teenagers. So he's a busy person. I think that everyone can relate with that, or lots of us. And he actually started listening to the Training Beta podcast, among other podcasts, but he took a couple very specific things from the podcast that made a huge difference in his climbing and his training and his overall enjoyment of the sport, which I find extremely rewarding. As I've said before, I just sit in my office and talk into the void. Like I just talk into this microphone. I don't know like who's getting what from the podcast. So to have a person say that we helped them is really, really wonderful for me. So thank you to Jeff for writing in and for being willing to be on the podcast. And here's Jeff Rotkoff, and I'll talk to you on the other side. Enjoy. All right. Welcome to the show, Jeff. Thanks very much for talking with me today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and we'll go from there?
Sure. My name is Jeff Rotkoff. I live in Austin, Texas. I'm in my mid-40s, about to be 46 years old. I'm a full-time kind of white-collar job dude. I work in digital publishing. Launched a startup last year. I'm a dad, have twin 13-year-olds. Who are themselves climbers a little bit. And I've been climbing. I sort of had 2 climbing careers, I guess. When I was in middle school, my dad was in the military. We lived in Europe. And so I learned to climb in the German Alps. I did like a alpine ascent in middle school. I learned how to rap off the side of a building. It's weird. I've thought about it because it was the early 90s, and I don't know what the culture of sport climbing was in Germany in the early 90s, but I definitely was on a top rope in Berchtesgaden in Germany, and like had to have been like 92 or something like that. And then I didn't climb for like 20 years because we came back to the States and we moved to a place where there were no mountains, and also there wasn't Google. And so I was like, well, I guess that's over. 9 years ago, actually, I was thinking about it. It was 9 years ago yesterday. A buddy of mine was like, hey, you want to go to the climbing gym? And I was like, yeah, I used to do that all the time. I've been back climbing now for, a little short of a decade.
Nice. So you started back up when you were like 37-ish.
Yeah, that's probably about right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is gonna be so inspirational because so many people are like, "I wish I would have started when I was like Brooke Rabbitou's age at
Yeah.
2 to
Yeah.
started climbing." That would have made all the difference, but this is gonna show people that, like, you can improve at any age. It's awesome.
Oh, totally. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm going to stretch that as long as I can, fighting father time.
right. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I asked you to be on the show because I had asked for submissions basically of people giving me their success stories with training and whether that was using training beta resources or otherwise. And you happen to use some of our resources, I'm sure other people's too, and had quite a bit of success. So, what we're going to do here is talk about like your before, during and after sort of
Sure.
story. Yeah. So why don't you tell me like when did this journey begin for you? I know you started 9 years ago, but then what?
Yeah. So I had, so relevant to this is the fact that my kids just turned 13 and I started 9 years ago. So I've always been through like phases of sport performance. So before my kids were born, I was a super serious runner. Well, I don't know, maybe not super serious, but I was like a 35-mile a week runner. And my long runs were like 11 to 15 miles once a week with like sort of training in between that. And I took running like really seriously. And then we had twins and I didn't like work out at all for like 3 years, and I had a super high stress job, and candidly I was like eating like garbage and drinking too much, and just let myself like super fall out of shape. And so at first getting back to climbing was just like I have to like move my body or I am like not gonna I was like really like in poor health is the truth. And But I love climbing. I just and always loved it as a kid, and it quickly became like a place where I found like real joy and like
Mm.
personal validation, and started taking it seriously and went from the like, well, I'm going to go to the gym and rental shoes, once or twice to like, okay, I think I'm like going to start taking this thing seriously and training um, and so for the first couple years back of climbing for me, it was really just like rediscovering the love of the sport and starting to see my body adapt to sort of that initial phase of climbing where like I don't know if you can tell from the video, but I'm not like a huge dude, right? Like I'm a little over 6 feet tall, and like the most I've ever weighed is like 175. Um,
Mm.
uh, and so my body adapted to climbing, I think, pretty quickly early on, where I sort of gained some of that climbing muscle in like my back and shoulders and forearms and stuff. But it was training adaptation because I was climbing, but it wasn't intentional training, right? It was just I want to climb a lot as much as I can, and sort of the natural adaptations that come from that. And then Actually, a couple years in, for my 40th birthday, I did my first buttermilks trip with some friends, and that gave me like a 6 month window where it was like I'm turning 40, we're going to the buttermilks, and I'm getting like hardcore and serious about training. I'm predominantly a boulderer, and frankly, like I'm predominantly an indoor boulderer because I got a job and I got kids, and I live in Austin, Texas, where our season is like short and getting shorter. Um, uh, and but I had like a real training goal because I had a big trip. Uh, and then I'm sort of trying to connect this to your question about like the training advice that I took away from you. What I recall on the like the form that I filled out was like what I had learned from Training Beta, and it was like two things from two different podcast episodes that you did that like completely changed my training. And the first was something that Matt said about using the weight room to train the four major human movement patterns: a push, a pull, a hinge, and a squat. And I had been predominantly focused on training that felt like it was a direct one-to-one to my climbing. So like lots of
Mm.
weighted pull-ups. I wanted that goal of I wanted to be able to do 150% of body weight weighted pull-up. And I got there. But like, whether that had like a direct correlation or causation to any stronger climbing. Like, I don't know. And that thing definitely like a decade ago, around the time when I was back into climbing, of like, you need to like train your antagonist muscles, of like, well, if you're climbing a bunch, you need to be doing bench press because you're pulling a lot. So you need to push, right? It was like very sort of underdeveloped, I'd say, thinking around training. And so I just, Matt said a push, pull, hinge, and a squat. And I was like, well, shit, I can do that. I'd never deadlifted in my life. And I was like 40 years old. And I was like, well, I guess I'll learn to deadlift. And so I started with Romanian deadlifts for like 6 months and felt like I'd sort of mastered that movement pattern. And then I was like, okay, now I'm going to try a proper like full bar deadlift and train that for like a year. And I have really skinny legs. I'd never felt any value in like a squat because I was like, these legs are never going to be anything but super skinny. But I was like, well, I guess I got nowhere to go but up. So let's do some squats. And anyway, so that push pull hinge squat thing, like over 2 years or so of lifting, like really has changed my body, has given me a ton more just overall strength. I don't know, like a year ago, I had to move a piano and I was like, oh, I can like actually deadlift this side of the piano off the ground. And I did. And that was amazing.
That's amazing.
And then so anyway, the second thing, aside from just like I'm gonna be strong, because being strong is gonna help me be more injury resilient and just overall have a broader set of tools in my climbing toolbox. The second thing was something you said, which is this was a podcast. I remember you did this like early in COVID, and you said something like, or maybe it wasn't even a podcast. It might have been like a Zoom. I think, Neely, were you doing like Zooms early in COVID with people?
Mm-hmm.
I had this
Yeah.
recollection that you were, and you said, I am begging you, if you take nothing from this, eat like 100 calories of carbs like an hour before you climb. And I had always climbed on an empty stomach. To the extent that I carry body fat, I carry it in my belly. And so I have this association of like feeling full with feeling like I'm bringing too much weight to the wall or to the climb. And that's an unhealthy and stupid association, but I sort of can't help it because again, when I'm carrying body fat, it's like in the same place as carrying the meal I just ate. And so, I was like a caffeinated climber only for a long time. I'm also a morning climber. I always, just for like life schedule, like morning is most realistic for me. So it was easy to like wake up, get the kids to school, drink a couple cups of coffee, head right to the gym, and just have that stimulant, but not real fuel, or not like
Yes. Yeah.
real energy. And so at first, I literally, it's so silly, but I would like pack my kids' school lunch, and I would give them like one of the like little kind of granola bar things, and I'd just take an extra one for myself and eat it on the way to the gym. And I was like, wow, my sessions are going longer. I'm stronger. Um, and, and then there's a little bit of an intersection between that and the lifting. So now it's like, well, I'm going to have, instead of 100-calorie granola bar, I'm going to have, 250 calories of like real food. And in that, there's going to be 25 grams of protein on my way to the gym, because I'm trying to hit a daily protein goal. And those two things of just like literally lifting, but focusing on the four major human movement patterns of push, pull, hinge, and squat, and being fueled and fueling throughout my session, especially if I'm having an outdoor day, or my long days or Sundays, I'll go climb for a few hours, whether it's outdoors or indoors, but like not just going to the gym with food in my stomach, but like bringing something to eat and fueling midway through my session. Those two things have just like completely changed my climbing for me. And what's cool about it is, or what I hope is cool about it is, for me, my goal at this point is like just longevity, right? Like I'm almost 46 years old. I don't have the genetic capacity that I ever had a chance to be like the strongest dude in the gym. But if I did, that window closed for me 20 plus years ago, right? But the window that is opening is being the oldest dude in the gym, because it's very often that I'm like there with my like climbing buds, or I'm out at the crag and I am the oldest person, or I'm like one of like 5 people north of 45 years old. And I've decided, I was like, okay, well, I think that's my goal. I think I want there to be a day where I'm like the dude that people are like, that guy's like 55, 60 years old, and they like can't believe it.
Love that.
And I think that like these two things of being as strong as possible and actually giving my body the opportunity to recover because I'm climbing with proper fuel, giving my body the opportunity to like perform and actually like get something out of my training because I'm properly fueled. Those, yeah, that's like the whole difference maker for me.
Nice. Well, first of all, we've been talking for 11 minutes
Oh no,
and
I'm
40 seconds, and you have been so succinct about all of this.
sorry.
You said it before we started recording that you talk for a living and that's what you know how to do, and you are really good at it.
Well, thank
So
you.
you just explained that super clearly and gave us really good background information and like your motivations, and I loved everything that I just heard. So, first of all, really good job. I'm honored to think that I had anything to do with
You did
this
it.
like joyful smile on your face talking about this. Yeah. So I obviously have some questions, but thank
Yeah.
you for that overview. Okay, so I want to get some numbers down here
No.
because people are probably wondering like what were you climbing before and what do
Yeah.
you climb now?
I mean, this is the embarrassing part, because you're like people who are on your podcast are, V double digit climbers and 513 plus climbers, and I am neither of those things. I am like on my best day in the gym, I'm a V8 climber. Um,
Mhm.
uh, and I am really predominantly a boulder. Like I don't really sport climb enough to even talk like grades. Like right before COVID, I set the goal. Again at that point, I'd been back to climbing for like 3 years. And I was like, okay, I think I know my 512 project. And I remember going out and doing like an exploratory session on it with a couple of friends. And like, if you remember at the very start of COVID, it was like, well, can you get COVID from like sharing a draw with somebody?
Yeah.
Right. And so like, we like suddenly were like, okay, well, I guess we're not sport climbing anymore for a while. And so I've never climbed 512 outside at least, but I also like, I sport climb outside legitimately fewer than 10 times a year. Um, uh, it's just not how I participate in the sport predominantly. Like I'm a boulderer first. I have a project outside now for any Austin climbers who might be listening. It's Xanax at Bull Creek. It's a slab climb. It's like a pocket slab. And I hate pockets and I hate slab, but I really love this climb for some stupid reason. When I first started climbing it, it was really before this advice of like go fueled and try to be strong. Um, and like, the crux for me was like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 moves in. And now the crux for me is like the crux. This session or this season, I don't think I've been on it since probably January or February. Cause again, we haven't had good weather and good conditions. And I haven't had the opportunity when there have been narrow condition windows to go get on it. But, this season I'm down to the point of like, okay, there's a hold that broke at the second to last move where there's this disgusting sloper that is, I don't think a human being can really make it work. Maybe you can bump it as an intermediate, but there used to be a crimp above it. The crimp's gone, but now there's a mono. And so you can maybe go out to this mono, but I am at the second to last hold on the boulder. I'm figuring out beta. And I think it'll go down if I can just get like 3 decent weekends in a row. I just need to go back out and, I feel really confident in my ability to send that. And again, I don't know, maybe it's a 7. Nobody really knows. Or I don't know that there's a consensus is what I would say after a bunch of holds have broke. Prior to that, my hardest outdoor boulder was like, again, for Austin climbers, also at Bull Creek, which is an underrated old bouldering crag here in Austin. There's a 5 called the Marshmallow Boulder, which is a compression boulder. Also not my style. I don't know why I don't project things that are my style. Instead, I project things that are not my style. But there's a boulder called the Marshmallow Boulder, which is a really slimy, gross friction compression boulder. It's called the Marshmallow because it looks like a big round white marshmallow that has no features on it. I did that in like a session. And so, whereas now I have this like highball slab thing that I think I'll get it this season. Indoor, or if I'm like looking at the kilter board, for example, like I got into board climbing, in the last couple years, and I'm like, I can climb 8s on the kilter board, not every 8. And usually if I go into the if I go into the notes, it'll say soft for an 8, but like whatever, I don't, you know, um, uh, uh, but you know, plenty of, you know, if I get on a 6 on the kilter board and I don't flash it, I'm disappointed. And I expect to be able to, you know, climb most 7s in a session or two, and 8s are like real projects for me. I've just been playing around in the TB2. That's obviously a super different style of climbing. Um, than the kilter board. I know it less well too. Whereas like, I mean, I've spent so many sessions on a kilter board that I can like really just kind of like look at it and kind of know how it's going to feel and know what the holds are going to feel like and how I want to take them. I've done like a dozen sessions on the TB2 and I'm just now learning it. So I'm not even really comfortable saying like what I think my grade would be there. But yeah, I mean, I guess I would say like I've added 2 or 3 like V grades to my bouldering after the age of 42, which is like not bad. I hope. I don't know.
Yeah,
This is
it's
the part
definitely
where
not
somebody
bad.
listening can be like, "Oh, I can't learn anything from that dude. He's weak."
No, I hear a lot of like apologetic tones in your voice.
Yeah.
And I mean, in most of my listeners are V2 to V4
Oh,
climbers.
sweet. Well, they should kill. They're
That's
gonna
the most because that's most climbers.
got it.
So,
Fair. Yeah.
like you are you're doing great,
Well,
and I understand how hard Kilter V8 is. It's hard.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
like I don't honestly love talking to pros anymore because they're like
Yeah.
so different than me. I
Yeah.
can't even relate, you know? And so
Yeah.
I don't want like what you have accomplished is wonderful, and it sounds most importantly like you're really enjoying it.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, so my question would also be like besides the grades,
Mhm.
you said that one thing you noticed was that you could deadlift one side of a piano and you just feel stronger. And I wonder how that shows up in your climbing. Like, regardless of grades, how does climbing feel to you now?
I am so much more confident in hard moves. Like to the extent I have like a strength with climbing, like I think it's important to sort of know your strengths and weaknesses. Like I have a lot of weaknesses. Again, I'm like pretty lean. I'm not very flexible. I have terrible hips, like high feet just fucking kill me. Um, uh, you know, as a sport climber, my weaknesses are like, I'm like scared to take a lead fall. I just am. And so I'd much rather go cruise like, hey, let's do like 10 laps on a 5.9 today where I can just kind of do it with my eyes closed and not have to worry about a fall. But to the extent I have a strength, it's that I'm really, really comfortable trying hard, especially bouldering. Like I am to take the weight room sort of nomenclature, like an RPE of 10 or an RIR of 0, like where you just feel like I am giving it literally 100% maximum capacity. I will do that bouldering indoor, outdoor, all day long. And I just feel like I know how to access that. And so because of that, like just being stronger has really, really mattered. Like I
Mm.
can do things with my body that I previously could not do. I was in a in the one of the bouldering project gyms here in Austin over the weekend and doing this boulder that had a traverse lateral move in relatively overhung, like a sort of overhung spot with a chicken wing shoulder move. So you're basically like kind of like half karate, like kind of like a karate kick dyno laterally out into this thing. I had to stick my right hand into this like big shoulder move. And I mean, I watched somebody get injured on it actually, like a woman who's 10 times stronger than I am. And we could all hear her shoulder tear. It was terrible.
Ugh.
But I like stuck that shit. And I think I stuck that shit because my shoulders are really strong. And my shoulders are strong because I've like for, I don't know, a couple years now been like, well, I'm going to lift like real seriously, for strength. Um, uh, yeah, just by and large, I will say the squat and the deadlift piece of lifting has given me more confidence in slab climbing. Um, because my legs are so skinny and my strength is way disproportionately in my back and my shoulders and my arms, I've not had a ton of confidence in like small feet indoor or outdoor, especially something where you feel like if you blow the foot, you're going to like skate down it, that's always been like some place that I've felt really nervous. I can like barely do a pistol squat, but what I feel much more comfortable doing now because I've, trained squats is like a bad foot onto something that maybe comes into like a little under flag and kind of squatting out of it. Like I don't know. I just feel a lot stronger. And I objectively, like measurably am stronger. I'm probably this like, this is all relative, right? So if like a friend of mine listens to this, I can like hear them mocking me. It's all relative. But I'm probably like the strongest I've ever been. And I'm about to be 46. Certainly in the last 12 months, I've been the strongest I've ever been. And it's like, I'm pretty close to that, like right now. And that, I don't know, that's a
Mhm.
great feeling.
Oh yeah, it's super confidence inspiring because we're told from the time that we're born that like 46 is legit old.
It is
And like you
sometimes.
may as well give up. And I've talked a lot about this on the podcast, but yeah, you're like, "Oh, things I can get better and I feel good."
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
cool.
totally. I'm not convinced that I'm done getting better as a climber. And that again, that's the other thing about like both the advice that I took from you and Matt and from other people too, is this idea of like strength equaling longevity. And on the nutrition side, and I mentioned this earlier, but I think it's like really important to sort of double tap it. Being fueled is not just about your session; it is about your recovery. Like you cannot, like you can't dig your way out of a hole, right? And if you go into a session under fueled, you're going to automatically sort of start your recovery in like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. One of us on this call is I think trained nutritionist, and it's not me. But like it's like glycogen stores are like really important for post workout recovery, is my recollection. And if you can either go into your workout with some fuel in your body or not. And if you go into your workout unfueled, then you immediately are trying to like make up that deficit before you've even got into any kind of recovery. Whereas if you go into your workout fueled, then you can come out of your workout and start recovery and fueling that recovery. And that's a very layperson. I mean, I'm sure everything I just said is wrong, but like the vibe is right.
No.
Right?
No, it's
Like,
it's
you
not
know,
wrong.
um,
Yeah, and normally so when I work with people and yes, I am indeed a trained certified nutrition
sorry,
professional, but no, it's fine.
I knew that. I just didn't want to misspeak.
Yeah, no, it's fine. The things that I notice or that they notice when they start feeling better are they have more energy for their sessions. So they climb harder, but they can also climb for longer
Yep.
and try harder, like deeper into their session. And then they also feel less sore that day, the next day, the next day. They feel like they have more energy for the next few days because like you said, they're not digging, they're not like in a hole. So I'm curious if those things have happened for you and like anything else that you've noticed.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what it is. Is I am uh, I'm able to, because I'm fueled, I'm able to recover better, and I'm able to do a higher volume overall between sports. I mean, I don't think of lifting really as like, I mean, I definitely think of myself as a climbing athlete, obviously as an amateur athlete. And again, for any of my friends listening to this who want to roast me, I'm not saying I'm a good athlete, but like with climbing, like I train for performance in a sport, right? That is like the definition of being an athlete. With lifting, like, yes, I track my performance, but it is lifting. I lift because I want to climb better and because I want to be stronger. And so I think of it a little differently. But in terms of total volume, I'm still in a gym 5 days a week. Like I lift twice a week and I generally climb 3 days a week. And I could not do that volume of 5 days a week on if I wasn't fueled properly. I think
Mhm.
my body would break down. Um, uh, and so it's not just the ability to try hard deeper into sessions. It's the ability to do more cumulative work over the course of any given week between lifting and climbing. And sometimes even like, if I have a trip, being able to like say, okay, well, I'm not going to lift this week because the last trip I did was to the new last summer, and I hope to get back there this coming summer. I want to be able to climb like really hard for as long as I can for a few days at the new and take advantage of the fact that I'm there or whatever. I might do a Wyoming trip this summer. And so just like going into that with a deeper well that I can dig into, like more available work capacity all around. I'm absolutely convinced that's because of fueling. And then like hard moves, you know, hard again, I'm like talking about this like I have any subject matter expertise, and I acknowledge that I don't, but it feels to me like hard moves are as a percentage of your capacity to do a hard move, right? It like what is 100% of the strength and the force that you can apply in any given body position at any given moment. And so like to the extent that you're strong and you're trained up, you can make that move easier or you can make that move harder. And the combination of those two things, like having the ability to generate force because I'm lifting a lot and I'm just stronger, and then the ability to do more overall volume in a session or in a week because I'm recovering. Like that's like how I'm able to participate in the sport I love that helps define my my life. I couldn't do it without.
Yeah. It's super interesting because what you're saying, how you're describing this is like why people take creatine or testosterone
Mm.
is so that they can do more work, so
I mean,
that
listen, I
they
do use
can be
creatine.
stronger.
I don't use testosterone. I'd be
Yeah.
if I was using testosterone,
But
I'd have to get my money back. But I do take creatine.
yeah. But I guess what I'm saying is like, okay, the creatine does something for you, but the nutrition part does the most work for you.
Oh,
And
yeah,
that's, yeah, that's why I'm always like, nutrition is the low hanging fruit.
yeah.
Like all you had to do was, and you can tell me give me like the 5 main things you did differently with your diet and like what the before and after.
Oh, I mean, it's not even 5. It's like, well, it might be 5. Yeah. So it is adding. First, it was just adding like literally a child's granola bar on my way to the gym, 100 calories of carbs, because previously it had just been coffee. I would just go, like, if I was really tired, I'd put sugar in my coffee. Right. But otherwise, it was like black coffee on the way to the gym. It was just the dumbest thing in the world. And I'm so embarrassed for how long I did that. Um, but then when I started taking lifting more seriously, it became uh, carbs and protein on the way to the gym, and not 100 calories, but more like probably 250. And then when I realized that that wasn't gonna like make me put on a bunch of weight, and it wasn't like, it took a while for me to like trust it and be like, okay, I can
Yes.
like trust this. Then I started fueling mid session. And then I started thinking about my overall daily protein goals, because I didn't want to, again, I'm not like trying to bulk. I'm not trying to get huge. I don't have the genetic capacity to do so, but but I do want to make sure that I'm that I'm fueling my recovery properly, which doesn't involve protein intake, right? So first it was like, so yeah, so to sum it up, it was like, first it was like, okay, I can't just have coffee, I have to have some carbs. Then it was like, okay, I need to have carbs and protein. Then it was, I need to have carbs and protein and mid-session fuel. Then it was, I need to have carbs and protein and mid-session fuel and post-workout protein, like I did when I was in college and I was like going to the weight room, right? And then the last piece actually has been a significant reduction in my caffeine intake. I still drink like 2 cups of coffee a day, but that's way off of the like 5 cups of coffee I was drinking a day a couple years ago, uh,
Mhm.
because I was just making up for the fact that I was underfueled by just taking a stimulant all day long. Um,
Yeah.
and now, now it's like sometimes it's even 1 cup of coffee. If I don't have 1 cup of coffee, I have a headache. I definitely have a caffeine addiction, but I rarely have more than 2. And I'm definitely not. I mean, there were times in the past where if I did an evening session, I would drink a cup of coffee at like 7 o'clock at night just to go be able to climb. And I
Mm.
can't think of the last time I did that. It would be literally years ago. So
Yeah.
that's probably the last piece is I've been able to dial down my caffeine intake because I've dialed up all that other stuff.
Yeah. You sound this is just like so classic what all of my clients come to me with. It's crazy. I do want to say one thing
Yeah.
about what you mentioned about being scared that you would gain weight from eating this food. This is so common
Oh, I
with
know.
people and we're told that we should have these specific things for breakfast, which are really low calorie or that we should skip breakfast in order to lose weight or whatever. But what I'm betting is that, and when I look at people's diet logs, this is what I always see is like a 0 to 300 calorie breakfast, a 3 to 400 calorie lunch, and then like a 900 to 1500 calorie dinner, and plus like snacking at night. And so what ends up happening is you even it out. So you're
Yeah.
having like 600, whatever, 700 calories per meal 3 times a day. And then you're
Yeah.
eating the same amount or less because you don't have those terrible sugar cravings because
Yeah.
you're starving your
So
body.
where
And
I
so,
tend
yeah.
to land now is probably more like, 300 to 400 for breakfast. And then I'll let my big meal be lunch. And I'll try to have a lighter dinner. And part of that is because I work out in the mornings, like a lunch is closer to like a post-workout meal. And there's that old idea, again, my age, like even though I know like scientifically the like post-workout like protein synthesis window is like basically been disproven, it's still stuck in my fucking head. And so I still think about like, a big post-workout meal. Um, uh, uh, oh man, I was going to say something else.
Yeah.
Oh,
So you're,
the other
yeah.
thing to your point about like we worry about gaining weight, like it's worth. I mean, like the idea that climbing is a strength to weight ratio sport is such a damaging notion. Like, sort of it is, but we should actually just say it's a strength sport. I think, because, like, yes, you are moving your own body weight up and down the wall, but like in that sense, like soccer is a strength to weight ratio sport, basketball is a strength to weight ratio sport. You're still just moving your body, right? And so like as I think about my own climbing, like I don't really get on a scale anymore. I don't care what I weigh. I want to feel strong. Like climbing for me is a strength sport, and if I have that strength, then it doesn't matter what I weigh. Um,
Yeah.
you know, because just it's you versus you, right? It's one on one against yourself, and so anyway, I've tried to like again, like the notion that climbing is a strength to weight ratio sport may be in a narrow and specific sort of descriptive case true, but I think it's kind of harmful because again, I'm not, if Jonathan Siegrist wants to lose 3 pounds for like a 515 project, yeah, go for it. But the rest of us aren't ever going to be Jonathan Siegrist trying to lose 3 pounds on some 515, right? It's not about that. Like for most people, like, okay, are you strong? Like, can you pull hard? Can you try hard? If you can pull hard and try hard and you're strong and you can get your body to do things, like who cares? There's dudes I see, there's a dude I see regularly in the gym. I actually don't know his name. There's a dude I see regularly in the gym in Austin who like, I think all the time, I'm like, that dude definitely like objectively probably could stand to lose some body fat by traditional Western, you know, traditional Western like perceptions of how men should look. And that dude is such a harder climber than I am. He'll fucking smoke my shit all day long, and because he's strong. And I don't even know this guy's name, or I'd compliment him, but he's just strong as shit. And I just think that like we should stop worrying about strength to weight ratio and just be strong, like just pull hard. And yeah, if you're a
Yeah.
pro, okay.
Yeah, and that's another thing with the weightlifting is I think that there are some people still who are like, I don't want to lift weights because I don't want to gain weight. And honestly, sometimes it does make people gain weight. Um, so I'm curious, you said that your body changed
Mhm,
from lifting
mhm.
and probably from the nutrition. Like, what did you mean by that?
I mean, so in the last like, let's say, sorry, what year is it? Okay, so in the last 9 years, so in the course of my climbing career, I have probably swapped 10 pounds of body fat for 10 pounds of muscle.
Mm.
And maybe more like 15 or 16 pounds of body fat for 10 pounds of muscle. Like I mentioned at the start of this, you were asking about my sort of like trajectory. And when I got back into just like feeling like I cared about athletic performance in any sport overall, I was like way out of shape. I was really stressed out from a high pressure, high profile job. I was drinking too much. I was eating like trash. And I lost like 15 pounds of body fat. And then I put on, I don't know, probably 12 pounds of muscle, or
Mm.
something like that. Yeah, I like look legitimately different.
Mm.
And that's fine too. That's okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
for sure. And as on the topic of the weightlifting, I think that people are probably curious, like what your routine looks like.
sure.
What are you doing when you're with
Yep.
weightlifting?
So I lift twice a week, and I do a full body routine. And again, I swear to God, it's one podcast for Matt Pincus. It's push, pull, hinge, squat.
So
Right.
funny. Yeah.
I like an incline bench. So I do an incline bench. I will rotate, like sort of mesocycles, I guess would be the term, but I don't really. It's way based on just like vibe and feeling. It's not like a calendar. But I will either do a back squat and a Romanian deadlift, or Bulgarian split squats and a proper full deadlift. But I don't ever, in the same like 6 month period, both bar deadlift, heavy weight, and back squat, because I find it's just way too taxing on my system overall. And I can see other numbers drop when I'm
Mm.
asking that much of my body in the same like 6 month period. So right now I've been doing Bulgarian split squats, which I hate, but I tell myself they're helpful for climbing. I tell myself it's kind of like coming out of a drop knee. It's like kind of almost like climbing adjacent movement pattern. So I'll do a Bulgarian split squat. I had been doing a overhead press, but I've been feeling a little bit of weirdness in a shoulder. And I think with the incline bench, overhead press is probably too much on like my front deltoid. And so I've taken that out, and now I'm doing just like lateral raises just to do some shouldery stuff. And then deadlifts. And then because I have really skinny legs, and because my upper body's pretty strong, like I can't quit doing weighted pull-ups. It's just too fun. And so I'm not trying to do the 150% of body weight weighted pull-ups anymore. I hit that and I was like, cool, that's amazing. I don't have to do that again. And so now it's more like weighted pull-ups, in the I'll play around with like sets and reps, but like, with I think yet let's say yeah, literally yesterday my working sets were with like a 40-pound kettlebell, for weighted pull-ups, for a couple sets of like 4 sets of 6 or something. And that's like literally it. It's just a bench, a squat, a shoulder thing, a deadlift, a pull-up, and
Mhm.
out. I have started doing, actually, I also in the last couple weeks have started working in dips, because I've noticed that it's for a long time, mantling has been a weakness of mine climbing. And I don't really understand why mantling is a weakness. I think it probably has something to do actually with my hips and my discomfort of like with a mantle using like a high heel, which often like goes along with the mantle. But even if it's just a pure mantle, like get out of the pool where my legs are below me and I don't have the heel thrown out, for some reason I just like I don't mantle very well. And a dip feels to me like a sort of adjacent movement pattern, and so I've been doing some dips and hope that translates to mantling. Um,
Cool.
but that's it. And I do that twice a week, and that's it.
And are you doing like 4 sets of 6 of all this
Um,
stuff?
no, it sort of depends. Usually what I'll do is I'll do like a, of my 2 workouts, one day I'll sort of dial a little bit lower on weight and a little bit up on volume. And then the next day, the next workout, I'll have higher weights and less rep, like a smaller rep range. So, um, for so it might be, I mean, like literally yesterday on incline bench, I did 4 sets of 10 and then 1 set of 6, a little heavier is my recollection yesterday. And
Hmm.
for Bulgarian split squats, I just literally make myself do 4 sets of 10, and I hate every second of it, but it's just like just doing it. I just make myself do it. For deadlifts, I'm doing something kind of arguably dumb because I'm about to have my birthday and turn 46, and I decided I wanted to do my heaviest deadlift ever at my 46th birthday. So right now I'm actually deadlifting like for a 1 rep max, which is stupid and unnecessary, but like, you gotta like, whatever. I'm an adult. I get to make my own choices. I know it is not going to translate necessarily to anything other than a stiff lower back, but I still want to do it. So I'm deadlifting for weight right now. Um, uh, uh, for weighted pull-ups, it's more in that like 4 to 5 sets of 6. I do like adding a set at the end that's close to maybe not a 1 rep max, but more like an RPE of 8 or 9 or an RIR of like 1 or 2. Because and it actually connects to climbing, because I know that to the extent, like I said this earlier, to the extent I have a climbing strength, it is my ability to try hard. Like try hard, like is the thing I'm good at. And I can get the most out of my limited genetic capacity and old busted body. And so I think that like adding in a set where I'm really close to a 1 rep max, even if I'm not actually there, but just to like kind of just to know that I can pull really hard or that I can push really, really hard. I think that translates to the climbing wall as much as any of the actual like volume and strength and conditioning. It's the, you could call it like a neurological adaptation, or you could just call it a like, like state of mind. Like, I don't know whether it's like art or science, but like trying really hard is important to me. And so I try to give myself, you know, at least once a week in the weight room, something where I am like full on, I'm going to die, like trying real, real, real hard. Because again, then in the gym or out on rock, like I know that I trust myself to access that piece of me. I trust myself to, get outside my comfort zone and to, maybe be the guy who's like yelling on the rock, but like, that's what I have to do to get at my maximum performance abilities. And so I try to intentionally manifest that in the weight room too.
I actually really love that. Yeah, you're like practicing try hard in a somewhat controlled state.
100%. It is practicing
Yeah.
try hard. It's like, I mean, it's almost to me like sometimes I will trade, and I don't know, I probably stole this from you or some other climbing coach whose, podcast I'm listening to. I will trade like a spray wall or a board session for like half my workout, where I won't do anything involved. I won't do weighted pull-ups. I won't do any shoulder work. Maybe I'll do some very light bench press. I'll still do like deadlifts and squats, but instead I'll go do a board session, because what I want to access is I want my shoulders working really fucking hard. Or I will go get on the spray wall, and I will just cause myself as much like as much pain as possible. I mean that as like the best kind of pain, the kind of pain that climbers chase. Because what I'm trying to do is just make myself try hard. And I totally think you can do that in a weight room. And I think folks should do that in a weight room. Again, it's a controlled environment. But for me, at least, there is a 1-to-1 transference of weight room maximum effort to climbing maximum effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and confidence in your abilities to
Yeah.
do those things safely
Yep.
on
100%.
rock, like the shoulder move. Yeah.
100%. Yep.
Cool. Well, I feel like we've covered a lot. Do you have anything else that you want to share with people?
No, I mean, thank you. Yeah, thanks. It's very cool to have this conversation. I'll say one other thing. One other thing that has been really helpful to me, and I'm sorry, this is not a training beta thing. This is a different
It's okay.
internet climbing coach. But even though I think, well, I don't want to endorse everything anybody says or does, but Eric Hurst makes this point about climbers being obsessed with peak performance all the time, and that in no other sport do athletes show up and actually expect to deliver their peak performance every single time they perform the sport? That like in other sports, people have practice, and we just don't think about climbing practice. We think about like, I'm here, I'm gonna pull as hard as I can. I'm gonna send my proj, like whatever. And that line from Eric Hurst is like something that I actually directly connect to being fueled and being strong, which is liberating myself from the notion that every session has to be the best session I've ever had. That some days athletes just have practice. Like professional athletes do not go into the weight room or the gym 5 times a week expecting to deliver their peak performance. They in fact save their peak performance for when it matters, and instead they just practice. And so I think there's something to be said for climbers learning that and thinking about just going into practice some days and letting ourselves have bad sessions. So for me, like the mental change of like, it's cool to have a bad session because that's just a practice session, and I'm just going to like learn something today. I'm going to practice a move. I'm going to, whatever. I don't feel strong, so maybe I'll work a little volume. Maybe I'll think about like endurance and capacity. It's just practice. It's cool. I can, next session can be my strong session. Like that's been really helpful for me too.
Yeah. I really like how you just said that. And Eric has been talking about that for like over a decade because of his kids, because
Yeah.
they would take seasons off of climbing because they were into football or whatever other sports they were into. And so he talked a lot about that. And like in theory, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. We should take seasons off. But I never did anything or changed my mindset about it. It was just like this little piece of information that has stuck with me.
To be clear, I'm not going to take a season off, but like I'll go have a session that's I just think of it as practice. And it's just like, maybe it's a gym session and like you walk in and you just hate the set. And you're like, I mean, no disrespect to the setters, but like, I don't think this ain't for me. Okay, cool. Go practice something. Like, just think about it like going to practice for a sport. And again, like if you don't demand peak performance every single time you step onto the rock or step into the gym, and if you're strong and if you're well fueled, my hope is that you can do this shit till you're in your 60s, because that's what I'm trying to do.
Or 70s. Come on.
Or 70s.
But yeah, no, that's what I'm saying is like, I've never been able to take a tangible piece of advice from that concept. And you just gave it to me. Like every session does not need to be peak performance, and it can just be practice. So thank you for that.
Well, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for being willing to be on the podcast and be vulnerable and expose yourself to the community. And like your success is nuanced, and it's not like you went from being a V2 climber to a V12 climber because of some like training thing. But what you did do was become a stronger, more resilient person who understands how to use the weight room to his advantage, and who has like started climbing harder and longer. And so all of that is really useful to everybody listening. So thank you.
Well, I hope so. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. Well, take care, and let me know if you have any more breakthroughs in your training and climbing.
All right. Thanks, Dealey.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Jeff Rotkoff. Thanks again, Jeff, for being vulnerable, being willing to be on the show. I really appreciate it. And I just think it's really cool to see people be objective about what they're doing with their time in climbing and make changes and like take the smallest tidbits from a podcast and change their lives. So I love that. If you want help with your climbing training beyond this podcast, we have a special going on with Coach Matt Pincus right now, where he's offering 12 weeks or 3 months of climbing training with him, where you will get 3 calls with him, 1 per month, and then constant contact with him via the True Coach app, where you'll also find your programming. And Matt's not just going to make you stronger and more skillful. He also helps you tactically and emotionally and with your mindset. And so you can find that discount of $260 a month instead of his normal $295 at trainingbeta.com/12 weeks, all one word. And those, he only has a couple spots left for that. So those will just disappear. That discount will disappear once those spots are filled. So if you want help with your training, that is something that we have special going on right now. That's all I've got for you today. If you liked this episode, please subscribe to the podcast and tell your friends about it. And thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. I'll talk to you next time.